As of 2023, 1,646 people have successfully crossed the Atlantic Ocean by rowing, including 150 people who have done it more than once. This includes 1,147 attempts, of which 790 have been completed. The first to row across the Atlantic were Norwegians George Harbo and Gabrielle Samuelson, who rowed from New York to France in 1896. In 1999, Terry Murden became the first woman to row across the Atlantic, taking her 81 days. In December of 2023, a crew of brave women will add their names to the ranks of those who have made the crossing. The rowing team from Salty Science, today on Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs. Joining me today is the four-woman crew of Salty Science. They are on a mission to row across the Atlantic Ocean to help educate future generations about ocean conservation. I had the pleasure of meeting the members of Salty Science at a fundraising event at Stilt House Brewery here in my hometown of Palm Harbor, Florida. And I was immediately intrigued when I saw the boat in the parking lot when I just happened to pull up that day. So I had to walk over and learn more about what was going on and what they were doing. But I'll let them tell you about all of that in just a moment. With me today is Chantal Bajang, Noelle Helder, Isabel Cote, and Lauren Shea. Welcome to the podcast. It is my pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for having us.
Let's start with some introductions. So let's just go around and each of you give a quick bio of yourself and your background.
Okay, I'll start. My name is Isabel Cote. I'm a professor of marine ecology at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Hi, I'm Noelle Helder. I am an Alaska Sea Grant Fellow based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And I live in Fairbanks, Alaska.
I'm Chantal Bégin. I'm a professor of instruction at the University of South Florida in Tampa, where I teach marine biology courses.
I'm Lauren, and I am currently a master's student at the University of British Columbia, also living in Vancouver.
So we have all marine scientists of some sort or another. Did you all know each other prior to taking on this venture?
Sort of. I can take this one. I'm the only team member who knew everybody else. So we all know each other because of our academic endeavors. Isabel was my PhD advisor. So I did my PhD at Simon Fraser University with her. And Noelle and Lauren met as students at the University of South Florida in Tampa, and they met in one of my courses in 2015.
So what is this journey that you're taking, this fantastic journey across the Atlantic Ocean? What is this all about? What is Salty Science?
Well, Salty Science is the name of our team, which reflects obviously the marine environment, our professional backgrounds, and I think also our passion generally in our personal lives, everything that's connected to the ocean. So we wanted a name that captured all of that, and I think Salty Science does that pretty well.
And what is your mission? What are you hoping to achieve here?
Our mission, of course, our most proximate mission this winter is to row 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. We are rowing from the Canary Islands all the way to Antigua in the Eastern Caribbean. And as we're doing that, we are raising funds for marine conservation. So we're raising money for 3 different organizations that work in different aspects of marine conservation. Our oceans, of course, face a lot of threats, and we understand a lot of the ecological principles, or we understand a lot of the ecological processes at play, and a lot of the solutions that we need to enact. And so we chose to raise funds for organizations that are doing a lot of good work in that field.
The race that you're doing is called the World's Toughest Row. So what are the details? What are the rules, regulations, etc.?
So the world's toughest row is a rowing race that starts in La Gomera in the Canary Islands and goes 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, finishing up in Antigua in the Eastern Caribbean. It's an unsupported row, so we will be on our own with everything that we need on board for that crossing as we make our way across. There's I'm not sure how many teams are in our year, but usually around 30 boats are competing as well, with teams of anywhere from one person to five people on board.
And your vessel itself is powered only by rowing. There's no sail, no motors, any of that. You say unsupported, uh, so you can't stop anywhere. You can't get any help from any other vessel.
There's a lot of rules, very strict regulations for many of these things, but the main components are that it has to be completely human powered. You can't put up a sail, you can't add any kind of element that might even give the impression that you're getting an advantage from something else. You will be disqualified. They review your footage at the end of it to make sure that those are, as best as they can, that everyone is following those rules. Can't receive outside help. There are also some other more specific rules, like we bring emergency water rations on board the vessel, and you're not allowed to touch those unless you get clearance from the safety officer. There's a bunch of specific regulations like that as well.
A lot about the safety equipment that we have to carry on board, the minimum number of calories for every day. Yeah, even if we see a passing yacht that wants to cheer us on and toss a beer, that would disqualify us. We can't take any outside assistance.
And additionally, there are really strict regulations about our trash and waste during the crossing. So we can't throw anything overboard. We have to bring every packet for every meal, every snack back with us on the boat as well. So nothing gets kind of left out at sea.
What about communications? Are you allowed to make phone calls, or if it's even possible to make phone calls or text messages, or what kind of communication do you have?
Yeah, we'll be well equipped in that department. So the newest regulation asks that we carry three different satellite phones. So we'll have one solely for the emergency grab bag in case we have to abandon ship, so that one doesn't get touched otherwise. We'll have one satellite phone that is kept for communication with the race officials, and a third one that we can use for personal communications. But of course, it costs a lot of money. The communication, the connection is often not very good, and so we don't expect to be communicating that much with our friends and family back home. But we also have the ability to send text messages, and we'll be able to send emails and videos and photos back through a satellite connection as well. Again, that's a bit limited, and that depends on how good our connection is.
Your boat itself is really an interesting vessel. What kind of special equipment or preparations do you have to make physically with the boat in order to make such a journey across the ocean?
So our boat actually has already crossed the Atlantic three times. So we will be the fourth team taking her across the Atlantic. So we've had to do a little bit of maintenance, lots of gear servicing. So things like getting our water maker serviced, getting the hull surveyed by a marine surveyor to make sure that the fiberglass is all still in good shape to stand another ocean crossing. We've also had our batteries replaced completely with brand new lithium ion batteries. We've serviced our solar panels. We've serviced all of the gear on deck, all new oars. So all of those things we've gotten brand new or basically rebuilt or brand new for the crossing.
And you mentioned the solar panels and the water making. So that all plays into your goal to be self-sufficient. What all does that entail to be completely self-sufficient?
It means that we bring every bit of food that we're going to eat during the crossing. Uh, we're given pretty strict guidelines about the number of calories that we should aim to take in every day. So, depending on our sizes as a range, but for us, it ranges from about sort of 4,000 to 4,500 calories a day. And so we have to bring all of that. We have to be able to make all of our water and not tap into that emergency supply. So we've got an electric water maker. We also have a manual water maker as a backup. We're bringing a couple of bags of spares and repairs. So we have to be able to fix everything on board that breaks. And we have a very elaborate medical kit that is supplied with all sorts of things that could happen. We know there will be some issues with hands and rear ends, but we are also prepared for all sorts of other mishaps that could happen. So I think that kind of covers all the main things about self sufficiency.
Obviously, on a trip like this, you're going to have to be able to rest. So, walk me through a typical day that you're going to encounter. Do you take shifts as you're rowing? When do you sleep? When do you eat? How does that work?
So we have a pretty simple routine, I would say, when it comes to our life at sea. It'll be pretty consistent. In general, we are a team of four, so we'll usually be rowing in pairs, and we'll row together for 2 hours at a time. And then we'll swap, and the other team will take over the oars, and whoever was rowing will rest for 2 hours at a time. And we do the 2 hours on, 2 hours off rotation around the clock, meaning we never have a rest period of any longer than 2 hours. And everything else that has to happen during the crossing has to happen during those 2 hours of off shift. So that includes sleeping, of course, but that also includes making all of those 4,000 calories that we have to consume, prepping those and consuming those. That includes making water every day, maintaining all of our systems, checking in on our navigation, making sure everything is functioning as it's supposed to, cleaning everything, including ourselves, and personal hygiene during that time. So the reality, we've done quite a few overnight rows, and by the time you have to get up, 15 minutes before your shift is over to be ready to swap in for your teammate. And maybe you need 10 minutes after your shift to kind of settle down and get ready. So even on the best case scenario, you're looking at maybe a maximum of an hour and a half of time that you would actually be able to sleep, assuming you're able to walk in and fall asleep right then.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's really impressive. How do you mentally prepare?
So on the mental side of things, we have we've spent quite a lot of time on our boat on different training camp periods, as well as we've all been around the boat all summer long doing longer rows and just putting ourselves through that and seeing how we take it. We've also been working both with a physical trainer as well as a sports psychologist, and our kind of mental trainer has been helping us a lot with coping strategies and how to push through those times when maybe you're not feeling at your best. So those have been really helpful things. We've also done a 72-hour training stint on our own, so without your team, just to see how you personally respond to a 2 hour on, 2 hour off shift, making yourself eat a certain amount of calories in that time, drinking lots of water, getting yourself up for your watches on your own. And that was a really good test to see just how you personally respond at different times, depending on how much sleep you've had. Um, and I think that helps prepare a lot of us to be able to go into those situations as a team and see how kind of each of us responded together as well as independently.
That's quite a regimen of training. I'm blown away by how much you're doing. What do you anticipate will be your biggest challenge?
Eating, I think we're all different in what we see our challenge being. We recently completed a 36-hour row,
Oh,
which was, I think, revealing for all of us, but it revealed different things for different people. So for me, it made me realize that I'm very likely to be seasick at night because there's no point of reference. So our 36 hours was 2 nights and 1 day, and I felt pretty unwell for most of the 2 nights, which made eating really challenging. So I think that's probably going to be my biggest challenge.
I think it's hard to say, right? I think one of the big challenges of something so massive is trying to prepare for every eventuality, but there are some things that happened, whether it's weather that you wouldn't expect, or some mechanical failures, or it's preparing for those things that are just unpredictable, that I think for me is the biggest unknown out there. And for example, in the last few years, there have been several teams that have had marlins actually impale themselves through the hull and create breaches in the hull. And so you can imagine that all of a sudden is a real emergency scenario with water coming into the boat. And if that happens when where you're sleeping while you're sleeping, that can be a real injury to deal with. So those sorts of things that you can't possibly prepare for, I think, is one of the really big elements here. And of course, the problem with that is you just have to wait and see what comes your way. And the best you can do is prepare as well as you can for all of the things that are more predictable and more manageable, and then roll with these punches as they arise.
I think I would just add to both Isabel and Chantal are talking about, and these very real challenges that we're going to face, and adding in the dimension of just complete exhaustion and still having to function and make those decisions for yourself and for your team in, when something does go wrong, being able to still kind of process normally despite running on very, very little sleep and lots of physical exertion. I think that's going to be a real challenge, and to work through those issues together. Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something really similar to Noelle. I think that the exhaustion side can mess with you in a lot of ways. And I think overcoming that just continuous exhaustion and having to problem solve through that and pull yourself out of those tougher times and figure out how to help your teammates pull themselves out of those tougher times as well. I think those are really challenging, but those are also some of the most rewarding experiences you can take away from something like this. So I'd say we're doing our best to prepare for all of these challenges that everyone talked about. But there is a certain degree of that's why you sign up for something like this. It is to challenge yourself physically and mentally. Otherwise, there wouldn't really be any point.
There certainly are a lot of challenges, and each of you are going to have your own mental battles, but the amount of effort that you're putting in both physically and mentally is just astounding to me. Now, earlier you mentioned about some of your emergency plans, that you have, a pretty significant medical kit and other supplies. What would happen in the event of some extreme weather and you just had to take shelter? Can you seal yourselves up in the boat?
That's a great question. So we are leaving in December, which is after hurricane season. So we don't expect massive tropical storms, but the Atlantic can have some substantial swells, and we can have some pretty big storms even at that time of year. And there are no places to stop along the way to take shelter behind an island, for example. So we'll be at sea. And if at some point conditions are such that it's not safe to be on deck, then what we do is we stow everything. Of course, everything will always be tied to the boat to start with, so we don't start losing oars and buckets and everything overboard. But you make sure that everything is lashed down really well. And then you go below. So the boat is completely sealed as long as the hatches are closed. And the boat is made to self-right if it capsizes. And most teams can expect to capsize at least once during a crossing. And so if that happens, you just wait and she rights herself, and you can go back on deck and start rowing again when the conditions are safe to do that. We can also do a few things. For example, if the winds are pushing us in the wrong direction and we're losing grounds, we can no longer row against the wind. We can set our para anchor so that we drift maybe in the wrong direction, but we drift more slowly. Or we can also use a drogue if we are going so fast and we're surfing down waves at a speed that is not safe. So we can use that to slow the boat down. So there's a lot of things that we can do if it's not safe to just be rowing normally on deck.
As far as the schedule from here until you begin your journey, you leave in December. What's next in terms of your schedule and preparations?
So we'll be all heading home in mid-August, except for Chantal, who lives locally. And then the rest of us will fly back home and we'll all work our normal jobs through the fall. And our boat will be shipped near the end of September across the Atlantic to the start line. And then all of us will reconvene at the end of November in La Gomera. And then we'll have 2 weeks to get ourselves prepared and fully ready for the trip. And then the tentative start date is on December 12th.
And again, it goes from Canary Islands is where you begin, and where does it end?
It finishes in Antigua.
And how long is that going to take approximately?
50 days.
Depends on a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Depends on the weather, depends on how fast we row, which could, change if somebody is injured. But we expect it to take somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow. And all of that without any support or any help from anybody, including no randomly thrown beers from nearby yachts. So you do have some sponsors that you would like to acknowledge, I'm sure. Can you tell everybody about your sponsors and possibly how to sponsor your team?
Sure. We have lots of people who have helped us along the way. And it ranges from bigger corporations who have made large donations. We actually have a couple anonymous donors who have given us substantial donations. Nielsen Corporation is a Manta Race sponsor. Concept 2, Rely on Batteries, are Beluga level sponsors. Mustang, Zenkai Sports, Ferrara Construction, and Tesla 2 Electronics are Oarfish level sponsors. And we have many, many smaller sponsors that have donated smaller amounts or a lot of in-kind sponsorship. And I also want to acknowledge the many individuals who have donated various amounts. We even had little Charlie who came up to us at the fundraiser and who donated, I think, $2 that came straight from his piggy bank, which was super sweet. But we, so, a lot of people have donated what they can donate, which is lovely. And a lot of people have donated $100, which is what we say is where you sponsor a mile. And so at this point, we've raised almost $26,000 out of mile sponsorship of people sponsoring one or a few miles. And just that level of support from a lot of different people has been really awesome.
How can everybody find out more about you and your project and your team and donate to support what you're doing? Where can they go to do that?
Yeah, so people can visit our website. It's a beautiful website that was graciously designed for us by Visual Realm, a local company. It's a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous website full of gorgeous photographs, and people can read, more about us if they want to, or about the race, or about the boat, or about ways to sponsor us. So as Chantal said, people can sponsor a mile. People who have the means or who are associated with companies can be corporate sponsors, or people can decide to donate whatever they can. All of it is absolutely tremendous support for us.
You can also find us on social media. Instagram and Facebook is at Salty Science Rowing, and on Twitter at Row for Salty Sci.
that's multiple ways that everybody can help chip in and support your team and what you're doing and the future of ocean conservation. Chantal, Noelle, Isabel, and Lauren of Salty Science, thank you so much for joining me today. I sincerely appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for having us.
That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Salty Science is rowing across the Atlantic Ocean to support charities focused on marine conservation education. If you would like to support the team of Salty Science, please visit saltyscience.org and donate. For $100, you can sponsor a mile of their journey, but any amount would be greatly appreciated. Shipwrecks and Sea Dogs is written, edited, and produced by me, Rich Napolitano. You can follow the show at ShipwrecksPod on social media and at shipwrecksandseadogs.com. Original theme music is by Sean Siegfried, and you can follow him at Sean Secret on YouTube or on the web at sean.siegfried.se. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, don't forget to wear your life jackets.